All right, what is going on, guys? Got another breakdown for UFC Vegas 67. This one's on the main card at bantamweight. We got Mateus Mendonca, primarily known as Mateus Bocal, taking on Javeed Basharat. Um, Bocal's going to have a 2.5 inch advantage in reach, though Basharat is 3 inches taller. Basharat training out of Extreme Couture, and Mateus Bocal, a Shuto box fighter. So good gyms here, but I'll start with Mateus Bocal. Picked up an emphatic win on the Contender Series. Just got full extension on the right hand, knocked him out 48 seconds in, so earns himself a contract there. Most known, I would say, for winning 7 or 8 fights, I believe it was in 2019. Not the highest level of competition because it's early on in his career, but some decent records towards the end of that. Towards the end of that stretch, he's fought progressively better competition, and this is going to be his toughest test yet. But that's what you'd expect. It's your UFC debut. But yeah, it does own a notable win over Pedro Nobre, who one fight UFC veteran. He did get caught after getting DQ'd for illegal strikes. Nobre owns a win over Mateus Nicolau and a couple other notable names, so he looked very good in that fight. Won it pretty comfortably, I would say, over 3 rounds. Only 23 years old. And yeah, just well rounded game for Mateus Bocal. I would say the thing I like the most about him is he's fearless in the pocket. He stays in there. He'll take one to give one. Mixes it up well. I'd say his game is primarily to get the fight up against the cage and do some work there, or work to a submission, work to a takedown. Um, he pressures very well, which I think you got to have pressure if you're going to beat Javid Basharat. But it's easier said than done. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, this is going to be his toughest test yet. I like what I've seen so far. There's good things about his game, but it's just kind of hard to see what we got in him. I do like the potential. There's a lot of potential here, and this has potential to be a fun fight because there are unknowns for Mateus Bucal, but for Javid Basharat, man, this guy is a blue chip prospect. Him and his brother, they're both just very well rounded. It's hard to find what you don't like about their game, but same thing with him. Just crushed the cans early. He's been getting progressively better competition on the regional scene or prior to the UFC. He looked unstoppable. Just nobody really had anything for him. And then against Oren Kalan in his Contender Series fight, he there was some beef in that one. I think Kalan called him a terrorist or something like that because Bashara is initially from Afghanistan. So that became a big story going into that fight. It kind of like I don't know if it was the main event, but it felt like the main event. And yeah, he really put it on him in that one. Just full domination. He was really wearing it at the end of the first round and really had his leg. He was a one legged fighter by the end of the third, and he kind of just rode out the fight on the ground and picked up the third round guillotine in the last minute of the fight. So just all around great performance in that one. Just announces his presence on the UFC radar in a big way, gets signed and stylistically, this guy just moves very well. He can fight going backwards very well, but he typically likes to push the pace and get the pressure himself if he can get it. He doesn't allow people to get to the center of the octagon easily. On the ground, very well rounded. He primarily likes to strike, but he's very well versed on the ground, and he showed that in his last fight against Tony Gravely. But yeah, not a ton of power, I would say. But what I really like about his striking is he mixes it up very, very well. He has great calf kicks. I hope that it's going to happen. But when Joe Rogan calls a Javid Basharat fight, we're going to be hearing all about how calf kicks have changed the sport. That seems to be Joe's only talking point these days. But anyway, yeah, the calf kicks are great. He's got some of the better calf kicks that I've seen. Honestly, just thinking about it. He goes to the body very, very well too. Like Mateus Bucal, this guy has good knees. Both these guys have good knees. They seem to land consequential knees in all their fights. But yeah, Basharat, he manages his range really well, but those knees and elbows come in really handy when the fight is in close. Um, the recipe to beating him seems to be you got to have heavy pressure and leg kicks against him. He has had a little bit of trouble with leg kicks. Tony Gravely landed some good ones, but it wasn't until the end there I think he landed a really consequential one. There wasn't enough time left in the fight to matter. But the thing about Basharat that I think is a big factor in this fight beyond being just like a blue chipper is like I think I've liked I've liked what I've seen, and he's been tested. He's been tested the way I want to see him be tested in his first two UFC fights against Trevin Jones. Trevin Jones was countering pretty well, but Basharat handled it pretty well. A couple judges gave it 30-27. I thought you maybe could have given a round for Jones in there. It would have been round two, but I think 30-27 is definitely a good scorecard too. He won that one pretty comfortably, but I'd like to see that he can take a punch because he did get cracked with some good shots. He was just so elusive before getting to the UFC. And against Tony Gravely, Gravely is good wrestling. He was not able to impose it at all. Basharat just so good with the scrambles. Was able to just completely negate his wrestling, get on top a couple times, and then by round three, Gravely was just really tired. That's just the thing with Basharat's style. It's a very exhausting style to fight, and it's also exhausting for your opponent too because there's going to be a lot of movement. So his gas tank is good. He does look tired at the end of his fights, but that's just because he expends so much energy. The fight IQ is definitely there. It's just again, there's just so much praise you can heap on Javeed Basharat and his brother. I think that they're both very legit, could be top contenders. And so for this one, no odds yet, but the community on Tapology overwhelmingly in favor of Javeed Basharat. And I agree with that. I just don't see how you can pick against him given how well rounded his game is. And, just the level of competition. I think he's faced tougher competition than Mateus Bucal. But listen, Mateus Bucal, I think this guy can be an asset or a solid fighter in the UFC for sure. I just want to see. I'm still like the jury's still out on him for me. But what I have seen though is he does pressure very well, and I like the fact that he's fearless in the pocket. I think that those are two things that whoever ends up beating Javid Basharat, if anybody ever beats him, because both these guys are undefeated, but if he does get beat, I think it's going to be a combination of taking away his mobility and just staying in there and just not being afraid to just take a shot to give one and land that knockout blow. I think it'll be a combination of those two things. So I don't think Mateus Bucal is going to be able to do that with the mobility. And I do like Javeed Basharat by knockout. We'll have to see when the props come out what the price is. But I think that with the experience gap here, I think that Mateus Bucal might get lured into a firefight. Javeed Basharat loves to draw things out of his opponent. He likes to do some gamesmanship too. Like this isn't a guy who's gonna shake your hand after the round. So he's always just looking to land that perfect shot. And he's had both of his opponents hurt in the Gravely fight and the Trevin Jones fight. He's had moments, and I think that when we see him get a knockout, it's going to be when he draws that reaction and just gets a perfect counter or something like that, or like an elbow that leads to a knockout, something like that. And I don't know. I'm gonna see what we got for a knockout prop because I think I'm gonna take a shot on Javeed Basharat by knockout, just hoping on that scenario that the combination of like this is gonna be the toughest test and that ability to counter if Mateus Bucal gets a little wild in there. I think that could be a good recipe for a knockout. So yeah, I do like Javeed Basharat here, but Mateus Bucal, I think good fighter, a lot of potential, but I just think not ready not on the level of Javeed Basharat yet. So thanks for watching, guys. Sure, subscribe and take it easy.